Hello, in this video I'll be showing how you can easily edit this photo when it comes to Photoshop. And in case you want to download the image file, simply like the video and don't forget to check the links in the description to download the raw image and also follow along with this tutorial. So right now we're going to start dealing with editing the raw image. So for this raw image, we're going to work on the corrections of the exposure and contrast issues. So I'll just decrease the highlights and the whites. I'll open up the shadows even more for this very image. I'll take the blacks down to add contrast into the black areas and add more contrast into this very image. So by just doing that, you can see the before, after. So after doing that, I'll just open up the exposure even a little bit more. So after opening up the exposure, I'll simply manipulate or try to manipulate the background because I don't feel like this color is more appealing to me. So for changing that color, I'll simply hit my color mixer, and you can see we have hue, saturation and luminance. So for this case, I'll come to the hues, and since the background is blue, I can simply change the hues or the color of the blues in this case. So just come the blues, and I'll simply take the blues towards the aquas, and you can see it tries to complement the subject even more. Then I'll come to the luminance and see whether brightening or darkness will affect or make the image better. So I'll just darken the blues in this case. So this is the before, after. The image already looks amazing. So what are we going to do after this? Just come and open the image in Photoshop for us to do the next adjustments. So right here in Photoshop, what we're going to do, we are simply going to first of all remove the distractions from this very image. How are we going to do that? We are just going to come, make sure the background is, you have one copy from the background layer by pressing Ctrl J, and after creating that copy as a backup, you're just going to come and get the spot healing brush tool. Make sure the mode is set to normal, and you can either decide to choose sample all layers or not to check it because this layer already has information in it. So I'll just reduce on the size of our spot healing brush tool and simply paint over the stand to try to eliminate it. So this is going to be an effective way for those that don't own Photoshop that has generative fill. So I'm just going to try to remove all these distractions by simply painting over these distractions in the background. So just paint until when you feel like everything has been cleared. You can see it really does a pretty nice job. So for this kind of stand in the lower part of the image, I'll reduce on the size and get a very small spot healing brush tool and paint this in bits. So I'll just be careful and paint this in bits and try not to select close to her leg, just like that. And it is going to eliminate that part of the stand. Ctrl minus to zoom out. So I'll come these other areas and try to fill them in. So I'll just do that. Then come to this reflector, and the purpose of this reflector, it was to fill up the shadows, especially on the legs of our model or of our subject. So don't mind if at all it is looking odd. So we are going to clear the background later on in this very video. So after I have cleared that, the next step is going to be basically to work on the skin. So in order to work on the skin, we are simply going to duplicate this layer by pressing Ctrl J to create a second copy from the layer that we had initially. Then I'll simply rename that to color and name the upper layer, double click to rename it to texture. So after renaming it, the next step is going to be coming to the color layer, turn off the texture layer, simply come to image, we are simply going to come, select the color layer then come to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, take the radius down to 0.1, click on the skin and start blurring away the textures from the skin. So for this, I'll just take this up. So for this, I'll use around 3 pixels. That is when the textures on the skin are just starting to disappear from the image. I'll simply click on OK, select the texture layer, activate it, then come to image, and I'll come to apply image. So it is going to open up the apply image dialog box right here, and make sure the source is the name of the image, layer, select the color layer, then blending has to be add because you're editing a 16-bit image. The scale is to offset 0 and turn on the invert option. So in case you are editing an 8-bit image, simply use a blending of subtract. The scale is to offset 128 and make sure invert is not turned on, and you'll have the same result. So mine is 16-bit, so I'll just change it to add. Scale is to offset 0 and simply invert. Click OK. Change the blend mode from normal to linear light, just like this. So after doing that, select both layers, then press Ctrl G or Command G on the keyboard and open up the frequency separation group. So after opening up the frequency separation group, select the color layer and turn off the texture layer. Right click under the brushes, get the mixer brush tool. In case you can't locate the mixer brush tool under the brushes, you can locate the mixer brush tool down here. So with the mixer brush tool selected, simply come under the settings, make sure a clean brush is selected, and the second option that says clean brush after each stroke is selected. With the weight of 9%, load 75, mix 90, flat 100%. Make sure sample all layers is not turned on. So it is time to work on the skin and smoothen the skin. So how do we smoothen the skin? We slightly zoom in by using Ctrl plus, we can use Command plus on the keyboard, and reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool and start painting. But how to paint? You simply left click and hold down and you even skin tone. So I'll just paint just like that. Paint colors that are looking alike. Paint the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. Don't drag color from one area to another area that doesn't have the same color. And to mix or to reduce or increase on the size of the mixer brush tool, we basically use the open and close bracket keys on the keyboard. So I'll paint on the hand just like that. And how I'm painting, left click and hold down and you paint on a given area. So for the legs, you can see we have to follow the way the legs are moving. So I have to move the brush strokes in an up down kind of direction to keep and maintain the original tones or how light is falling on that part of the body. So you can see when it comes to where the leg is bending, I'll move or follow that direction in which the leg is also bending. So follow that and you'll have the best results. So I'll try to blend here even more, just like that, to eliminate these uneven colors in that part of the legs. So you can see how nice this is getting to be or to look in this case. So after that, select the texture layer and now activate it. You can see the before, after so far. So I'll use Ctrl minus or Command minus and Ctrl plus to zoom in, Ctrl minus to zoom out. Select the texture layer, simply get the clone stamp tool, make sure the mode is set to normal or paste in the flat 100% and make sure aligned is checked and the sample is set to current layer. It is time to remove the pimples or blemishes from the model skin. So how do we do this? Simply reduce on the size by using the box or square bracket keys on the keyboard, then sample and paint over the pimple you want to remove. So hold on the option key on the keyboard and left click on a clean area near the pimple and release the option key. For Windows it is alternate and simply left click once again over the pimple to replace that pimple with clean skin. So this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the pimples or blemishes on the model skin. So sample and paint, just like that. You're going to be replacing the pimples or blemishes with clean skin, and that is going to remove the pimples from our subjective skin in this case. So I'm just going to quickly do this because I don't want the tutorial to be a long one. Command minus. So after removing those imperfections from the skin, close up the group. You can see the before, after. We have now done the skin smoothening. You can even come and get the mixer brush tool and you paint on the outfit with the low frequency layer selected to slightly remove the wrinkles or folds from the subject's outfit. Yeah, you can use frequency separation to do these wonders. Close the group, and after closing the group, we are going to continue working on the image. So in order to work on the image, in case it is having uneven skin tones, create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Alternate Control E for Windows, and create a stamp visible layer. Then simply come to select and come to subject in order to select the subject. So when the subject layer has been selected, the next step is simply going to be creating a new empty layer and changing the blend mode for the empty layer from normal to color. Then come to the brushes, right click and get the brush tool, and this time around reduce on the size of the brush by using the square bracket keys on the keyboard. So after doing that, we just want to sample color on the model skin and painting it all over or in areas where we need the skin to be nice and uniform. So sample from especially the face area. So I'll just sample that color. So just choose any color by pressing option and sampling that color and painting. So in case it is looking odd, we are going to be correcting that later on. And by the way, for brush settings, make sure it is a soft round brush. So right now I'm using the brush tool to paint over the skin. So you can see that it is creating an illusion that we are creating even skin color or even skin tones for the model skin. So I'll just come to the lower part of the body, especially the hands, and paint on the fingers and this other hand. So make sure that you paint on each and every area that has uneven skin tones to create this kind of evenness within the skin color or skin tones for the subject. So I'll be doing this for the skin tones. I hope you can see what we are actually achieving in this case. So I know this looks a little bit odd, but we are going to be correcting that in this very tutorial. So reduce on the size and come and paint on these toes just like that. Command minus. So right now the skin is okay. So in order to eliminate colors from areas you do not want to paint, get the eraser tool and make sure the mode is set to brush, and you can brush over the areas that you do not want to be affected by the color grading. So you can press Ctrl D or you can press Command D to deselect. So you can see that we haven't painted on some areas, especially this area below here. So I'll press E on the keyboard to erase color from her outfit. So you can see that we haven't painted here. Press B for the brush tool and simply paint in color. E for the eraser tool to erase color. So after doing that, the next thing is going to be trying to make the color look natural. So just come the opacity and reduce on the color effect in the overall image. So you can see before, after, before, after. So in case it's looking too much, just come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Change the blend mode, the color from master to reds, and take down the lightness so that it can look better and more natural. So for areas where you want color correct, I'm just going to come to the new empty layer that we created, or the sample visible layer. Come and get our quick selection tool and simply click on areas that we want to brighten. So for this case, I'll select her feet or her legs. So in order to subtract a selection, hold down the option key on the keyboard and it is going to bring back a minus icon, and you can use the minus to subtract a given selection. So I'll select the hand and some parts of her leg. So I'm just going to do this and paint or select more of her legs. So after doing that, just come the adjustments and simply come to brightness and contrast. Since the image is dark, it means it has more contrast. So I'll simply take the contrast out of that area and simply take up the brightness just like that. And you can see by just doing this, all these colors are going to look nice and even, as if the light was actually very nice and uniform during the photo shoot. So you can see before, after, that area has been lit quite well. So in case it is too much, reduce on the opacity of that area. So after we have done all this, let's do one more step for the color grading. I'll simply come to our last layer, select it, and come and create a selective color adjustment layer. Simply come to adjustments, select the blacks, and come and add some cyans to the image just like that to cool down the image. And you can even intensify on the blacks by increasing on the amount of blacks in the blacks. I know it sounds awkward, but that is it. So after doing that, I'm going to eye whiten or whiten the eye. So just come, create a hue and saturation adjustment layer, and simply make sure master is selected. Take down the saturation to around -76 or -77, then press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. Simply get the normal brush tool, make sure for the settings, hardness set to 0, soft round brush is selected, and make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. So in case you have any other random color apart from black and white, you can simply press D on the keyboard. So to switch between black and white, you can use this arrow key. So I'll simply zoom in and start painting on the areas where I want the eye whitening effect to be. So I want it in the eyes and also on the teeth. So be careful while you're doing this. And in case you make a mistake, you have to switch the brush back to black as the foreground color, and you can simply eliminate colors from a given area. So in order to work on the background so that it can be nice and seamless, we are going to create another stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E, Shift Option Command E, Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, then come to select, and once again we are going to come and select the subject. So the subject is incomplete without the selection of what is sitting on. So I'll just come on the quick selection tool, make sure it is on the addition icon or the add selection option, and add more into the selection. So after I've done that, the next thing is going to be inverting the original or the active selection. So how to invert it? Just come to select and simply come to inverse so that we can automatically select the inverse. So we are going to come to the brushes, right click and get the normal brush tool, and make sure for the settings you're going to be using about a flow of 60%. So what are we going to do in this case? We just want to work and smoothen the background. So how are we going to smoothen the background in this case? Increase on the size of the brush by using the bracket keys on the keyboard. So hold down the option key on the keyboard to sample color option and left click to sample color, and start painting in every area that has or contains these wrinkles and dark areas in our backdrop. And in that way, it is going to try to create a seamless color within the backdrop. So you have to keep on sampling from different areas. For example, here, sample from this area because this area seems dark enough, and paint just like that. Option. So remember to keep on sampling using the option button, option, and left click to sample a color. So we can even fill in this dark area of the background. So I'm just going to do this over majority of the background. So just come to this area just below her finger right there, and you can see right now the background is getting to look better and a little bit more seamless than where we initially started. So in order to make it look even smooth, we are simply going to come and get our magical mixer brush tool. So with the settings that we're using for our initial frequency separation, we are simply going to come and get the mixer brush tool, and we try to blend the areas that we have been painting in using our normal brush tool. So I'm just going to come and paint just like that. So the way we are blending using the mixer brush tool on the skin tone, it is basically the same way we are blending while using it for the background. So you have to keep on or avoid areas like the shadows, because you don't want to remove the original shadows from our initial image. And when it comes to painting close to the subject, you have to be very careful and cautious when it comes to painting close to our subject. So you can see before, after. The background now looks nice and seamless, and it looks very smooth. So after doing that, you can even come and add a given effect onto the background. So let me show you this simple trick to make the background not look a little bit smooth. So with the normal brush tool selected, make sure you use a hard round brush. And after using or selecting the hard round brush, remember we are still selected on to the background. So I'm just going to click on where you see the color swatches here, or you can look right there and choose any bright color by moving this towards the bright area and increase on the size of the brush and just paint over that background, and you can see it is going to simply create something close to a snoot effect for our backdrop or for our background. Simply done just like that. So I'm just going to press Ctrl D or Command D to deselect. You can see the image now looks nice and beautiful. So let's try to clean up this area where she's seated. So I'll just zoom in by using Ctrl plus and reduce on the size after getting our spot healing brush tool and paint on these areas or these nails to try to eliminate them and any dirty area that may be existing on this prop that she's seated on. So make sure you produce very nice and clean images as a photographer. You can even enhance this area that she's seated on by coming to selective color and simply targeting the whites, and you can play around with the yellow slider until when you feel like it is perfectly white, in this case by removing the yellows from what she's seated on. Press Ctrl I or you can press Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect and only get the brush tool settings, this time around soft round brush, and you only paint on what she's seated on, just like that. You can see now the image looks nice and beautiful. So in order to even transform this even more, you can add glow or shine, but this is it for today's video. So in order to save this very image, simply go to File, Export, and go to Export As, and it's going to open up the Export As dialog box right here in Photoshop. Make sure the file format is set to JPEG, quality set the maximum, which is 7 for this case, and make sure the resample is set by cubic sharper. Then when it comes to the color space, make sure the color space is set to convert sRGB, and also embed color profile have been checked, and simply click on export in order to save the image and click on save. So this is how you can easily edit and transform your studio photos from the start to the very end. And if at all you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe if at all you have been watching and you are not a subscriber yet to this channel. Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more videos on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.